Hello and welcome to a screencast on Chapter 7 of Streitmatter's Mightier Than the Sword, Defying the Ku Klux Klan. The Klan first reared its ugly head following the defeat of the South. It was founded in 1865 in Pulaski, Tennessee by a half dozen veterans of the Confederate Army. Its purpose was to intimidate newly freed blacks and their white supporters, and to prevent the newly freed blacks from exercising their right to vote. The movement lasted into the 1870s and was instrumental in returning control of southern states to white segregationist Democrats by 1877. This cartoon is by none other than Thomas Nast, whose work you've seen before. Here's another one of his cartoons portraying both the Klan on the right and a member of the White League, one of the other vigilante groups, working hard to keep blacks from enjoying their newfound freedom. You can see the iconic images that would be readily understood by the average reader. The lynched black in the background and the terrified black family in the foreground, the smoke rising from a schoolhouse on the right hand side there, and of course the masked figure of the Klan member. Harper's Weekly then had taken on the issue of the first Klan, and the press was going to be as courageous, or even more so, in the second phase of the Klan. The Klan had largely been driven underground or dispersed into other paramilitary organizations by the end of the 1870s. Congress had actually acted fairly quickly against the Klan, passing the Force Acts that made it easier to prosecute Klan crimes. They had specifically identified the Klan as a terrorist organization. In 1915, the second Klan was founded in Georgia when Simmons led the band of some dozen like-minded men up Stone Mountain, which now, if you're familiar with Stone Mountain, bears a bas relief of Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, and Stonewall Jackson, a bas relief that was funded, at least in part, by the Klan and was begun the year after the second phase of the Klan had begun. The men who founded the second phase of the Klan carried a collection of symbols that were to define the new Klan. The American flag, representing the 100% Americanism that the new Klan preached. The Bible, representing the strict morality that the new Klan claimed to enforce. The theatrics of it were part of the appeal of the Klan to the masses, and at the same time part of its method of intimidation. Simmons might have taken the idea for burning the cross from D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, a 1915 silent film based on Dixon's Ku Klux Klan trilogy. Dixon's novels are, in fact, credited with inspiring the revival of the Klan. The trail to the top of Stone Mountain in 1915 begins with the murder of Mary Fagan, a pencil factory worker, and the trial, the guilty verdict, and the eventual lynching of Leo Frank in 1915. The murder and the trial received sensational coverage from the Hearst paper, the Atlanta Georgian, complete with banner headlines. But the evidence convicting Frank was shaky at best, claiming that much of the best evidence exonerating Frank had been kept from the jury. It caused a public outcry. Frank was taken from prison and hanged by a mob organized by prominent citizens, and he was lynched on August 16th, 1915. The lynch mob called themselves the Knights of Mary Fagan, and on October 16th they climbed Stone Mountain and burned a giant cross that was visible throughout the city. The roots of the Klan's success then are both deep and complex, but the turmoil of the first quarter of the 20th century certainly offered fertile soil for its particular brand of hatred. The Klan was devoted to not simply Christian and white ideals, but white Protestant ideals. And so the anti-Semitism that found an outlet in the lynching of Thomas Frank was as much a part of it as the racism. But with the closing of one century and the coming of the new, writes historian Paul Hayworth, there was slowly developing in the minds of many men a state of discontent and disillusionment. The ideal of material power had been realized. America united into a real union and wealthy beyond all precedent, no longer needed to fear any foreign nation, but Americans were not satisfied. The mass of them possessed political equality, but they believed themselves oppressed. Economic inequalities had developed until the way to opportunity for the many was becoming choked. Men began to believe that political equality was a poor thing unless through it they could obtain something approaching equal economic opportunity. The question of man's equality again came to the forefront, but with a new face. And herein lies the real secret of the unrest of the past decade, concludes Hayworth. It accounts for the rapid growth of the socialist movement, for the breakup of the Republican Party and the rise of the Progressive Party. A new battle is on in the age-long struggle for human rights. In the face of this change, more conservative elements were going to seek ways to cling to the past. And as Streitmatter points out, the KKK offered its members a sense of fraternity, a commitment to self-defined traditional American values, and a long list of people to blame for the social upheaval: Catholics and Jews, blacks, and recent immigrants. The invisible empire became a force to be reckoned with. Texas Klansmen elected one of their own to the U.S. Senate. In Oregon, the KKK captured the governorship and enough of the legislature to ban parochial schools. The Klan also elected both senators from Colorado, as well as both senators and the governor in Indiana. The invisible empire became a force to be reckoned with. Texas Klansmen elected one of their own to the U.S. Senate. In Oregon, the KKK captured the governorship and enough of the legislature to ban parochial schools. The Klan also elected both senators from Colorado, as well as both senators and the governor in Indiana. In 1925, the Klan showed itself in Washington, D.C., as 40,000 Klansmen, complete with robes, paraded down Pennsylvania Avenue. Then the tide turned, writes Streitmatter. By the end of the decade, the Klan's power had faded into history, at least for the time being. The invisible empire's decline can be attributed partly to its toxic combination of violence, politics, and exploitive leadership, as well as its failure to produce the results that followers had been promised. But as during so many other chapters of American history, another key element was the Fourth Estate. For while much of the press either supported the Klan or remained silent on the topic, a handful of newspapers crusaded against the Ku Klux Klan with all their might. A handful. Right? Again, the exception that proves the rule. 3 newspapers were to earn the coveted Pulitzer Prize for their roles in the battle against the Klan. In 1922, the New York World. In 1923, the Memphis Commercial Appeal. And in 1928, the Montgomery Advertiser. The revival of the Klan was an insignificant event until in 1920, Edward Young Clark and Elizabeth Tyler managed to turn it into a profitable business. Clark and Tyler made an arrangement with Simmons for 25% of every new membership, and by 1924 membership rose to 4 million. The First World War had left Americans suspicious of everything foreign, and so the Klan's message of 100% Americanism resonated with Americans, resonated with xenophobic Americans. The Roaring Twenties had challenged traditional values, and the Klan's message of morality resonated with those who found the 20s to be morally offensive. The Klan managed to successfully capitalize essentially on all of America's fears. Because most newspapers feared the Klan's power, American journalists did not stand in the way of the growing Klan. Fear of reprisals led the editors to cover the Klan's public events and announcements as they would have any other civic group, treating the Klan as they would, say, Rotary or Kiwanis. The first and most comprehensive journalistic crusade and defiance of the Klan, according to Streitmatter, was a no-holes-barred expose in the newspaper that Joseph Pulitzer had built to legendary proportions. The New York World promoted its September 1921 blockbuster with full-page ads that screamed in 3-inch letters, "Ku Klux Klan exposed." The World depicted the Klan as a financial scam designed to bilk members out of their initiation fees to the tune of $40 million from membership fees and regalia. The Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, Inc., the story read, has become a vast enterprise doing a thriving business in the systematic sale of race hatred, religious bigotry, and 100% anti-Americanism. The series continued full throttle day after day for 3 solid weeks, boldly and relentlessly answering tantalizing questions about the mysterious organization. World reporter Roland Thomas had studied hundreds of Klan documents and interviewed dozens of disenchanted members. He received his biggest boost from former Klan officer Henry R. Fry, who had joined the KKK thinking it was a fraternal order like the Elks or Oddfellows. After learning the organization was founded on bigotry and hatred, however, he quit and then gave the world hundreds of documents. Although the expose was written in a sensational style, the World was as committed to destroying the Klan as it was to building its own circulation, which increased by 100,000 during the series. To ensure it had maximum impact, the World syndicated the series to 18 dailies around the country. One article, said Streitmatter, reported that Simmons advocated a return to chattel slavery, while another quoted lawyers saying the Klan oath was illegal because it required members to obey the imperial wizard even when his orders conflicted with the United States Constitution. Still another meticulously recorded the name and address of 214 recruiters. The World reported that during a 1919 raid on a house of prostitution, Atlanta police had identified the drunken occupants of one bed as Tyler, who was widowed, and Clark, who was married, but not to Tyler. A judge found them guilty of disorderly conduct. The Klan resorted to attempting to silence the press at one point by buying all 3,000 copies of the paper. It threatened the World with a libel suit and had insiders remove pages the World had used from the police files, but Thomas had made copies that he could then present in court to prove the veracity of his reporting. The World forced public officials to go on record for or against the Klan, and after several weeks of the paper's incessant badgering, the New York Board of Aldermen finally adopted a resolution condemning the lawless organization of infamy and of anarchy, of race and religious prejudice and hate. For the forces of law, it substitutes terrorism, replacing trial and punishment of offenders with anonymous threats and massed infliction of vengeance. This was a significant step to force public figures to come out in open opposition to the Klan rather than the silent assent to the Klan's activities that had pervaded prior to the New York World's series. The most stunning result of the series, though, was a decision by the House of Representatives to investigate the Klan. Thomas actually testified briefly at the hearings. Simmons, on the other hand, took the stage for 3 days. And after 3 days of Simmons speaking, many members of Congress and much of the American populace ceased to see the Klan as a demon and suddenly saw it as a hapless victim. In this new climate, Representative Upshaw introduced a bill stating that if the Klan were prosecuted, similar investigations would be conducted of the Knights of Columbus, the Freemasons, and other fraternal societies. In the short term, the Whirls campaign seemed to be a dismal failure. In fact, seemed to backfire entirely. Historians, however, take the long view and see the Whirls campaign as instrumental in exposing the Klan.